What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Spark to Fire. I'm your host, Landon Rhodes, and today I have my good friend Alex in the studio. We had a chance to meet when I spoke at the Capital Cigar Lounge a few weeks back, and what's cool is I had an opportunity to sit down and talk with Alex extensively about just like his really interesting history. And with Mental Health Month being November, I thought this would be a really good opportunity to kind of talk about mental health and share Alex's story. So, dude, thanks for coming on the show.
No, absolutely. I just want to say to the listeners, hey, I know you hear mental health and you're going to go, man, this guy in the scrubs, I'm turning that off. I'm telling you, watch today's episode. We're going to open up about some stuff that you typically won't see on a business episode, and it's going to relate directly to you as business leaders, business influencers. Anyone in the world is going to be able to relate to this because mental health is across the board. So take the time, listen to today, learn, open up your heart, and we're going to grow together.
Yeah, that's awesome. As you guys can tell, Alex has some experience in showbiz as well. Spirit fingers. For anybody listening, there's spirit fingers being thrown around.
Oh my gosh.
But really, you just have a lot of like really interesting stories. You had a lot of, it seems like you've lived several different lives, really.
Yeah.
So in typical Spark to Fire fashion, we like to start off at the very beginning.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
Well, let's talk about the spark. So born and raised Beatrice, Nebraska.
Okay.
Orangeman. Hold on. Did you go to Pius?
No, I went to Exeter.
Okay.
I'm from Exeter. Yeah.
There we go. I didn't know that.
I didn't know you're from Beatrice.
Oh my goodness. Look at us. Just small town trash. Here we are.
Who'd have thought?
Making it.
Not me.
So no, not me. Not me.
Not me.
So born and raised Beatrice, Nebraska. Very unstereotypical student. I was a horrible student. Can you guess how low my GPA was? Greater or less than 2.0?
Ooh, like a 1.9.
1.75 high school GPA. Okay. I didn't even know you could graduate with a 1.75. I went back and got my transcripts to get into Peru, and graduated with a 1.75. I was the kind of kid that I thought I was smarter than a lot of the teachers, and I probably was. But I was also really cocky, and I didn't know how to control that. So what that ended up being was me sleeping in class and thinking I could go to class and not study. So as you can guess, it was more me partying on Friday nights, Saturday nights. You know, I wouldn't do homework because why do homework? You can just kind of make it through the tests and get C's, and C's get degrees. But actually, this is going to be great when I'm finally running for state senate. And they're like, wait, you got a what GPA? But
say it again.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually failed my entire junior year. I bet you didn't know you could fail an entire semester of a year, but you did. So my senior year was intro to drawing, intro to pottery, foods A, foods B.
Really tough classes.
Yeah. I went hard, I didn't take the ACT either because I knew at 17 years old, and I really credit myself with having the foresight of knowing, hey, you're headed down a path that you're not proud of. You're not going anywhere with this. So at 17 years old, with the help of my parents, I joined the United States Marine Corps. I grew up watching the commercials, and I knew the Marines were the biggest and the best. I knew they could straighten me out. I didn't think anyone else was going to be able to do it. And
so you actually went in thinking I need straightened out.
No,
you actually thought that.
No, 100%. I was like, I'm a piece of shit. I knew I was absolutely horrible, and I was a drain on society. I knew I had to go do something.
Okay, so you joined the Marine Corps.
Yeah, 17 years old. So I was in the delayed entry program for my entire senior year, which essentially kept me on a straight and narrow. Yeah. I really had to focus to make sure I at least passed my classes and took it a little more seriously. Started getting a little more physically fit because I was always a chubby kid. So
same.
I did wrestling.
Go fat kids.
Yeah, let's do it. You matter too. You can get swole too. Just keep working. Mostly through the Marine Corps. But no, so I had to work really hard and ended up going a couple weeks after graduation, ended up going to boot camp. Now, boot camp was really similar to high school. I really wasn't the picture perfect image of what a Marine is supposed to be in boot camp, because what you guys see on TV is the snapping and popping and the silent drill team and everybody's 6'2" and their uniforms are pressed. I wasn't that dude. I just wanted to shoot guns, run fast, haul weight, and make shit happen. That was my goal. That's what I joined the Marine Corps for. I joined the infantry because I was part of the generation that grew up watching 9/11 fall. Right. And there's a meme that perfectly fits it. And it's this kid sitting in front of his TV at 9/11. And then it flashes to a picture of him with his helmet in Afghanistan. And it says, I've been waiting my entire life to kill you. That was me at 17, 18, 16 years old. I saw it. I was ready to go to work, and I wanted to do bad things to worse men. Mm-hmm. That was what I joined the Marine Corps for. So when I got to boot camp, I did not fit in because I didn't snap and pop. I just wanted to shoot. I had one of the highest scores in my battalion. I was a great shot. I was a pretty quick runner. I can hike weight. And it continued like that. So I was kind of, the crap bag. We had a group called the Fantastic Four, and in the Marine Corps now, you can't get the crap beat out of you anymore, but they can smoke you. So like throw you on the quarterdeck, push-ups, pull-ups,
right.
whatever you're doing until you're literally drowning in a pool of your own sweat. And so I was part of the Fantastic Four initiative. So it was the four worst shitbags in the company. So when one of us messed up, we all messed up. So I got really strong at push-ups in boot camp. I went from 190 pounds to 142 pounds in 13 weeks.
In
13 weeks. I dropped like 6 inches on my waist in 13 weeks.
Wow.
But I was always resilient, right? And this is the thing that I'm always proud of.
And so reference point for people watching on YouTube, what are you now?
I'm walking in at 205.
205.
205.
So wow, that's insane. And you were 140 something.
142.
At one
point. I came out in 13 weeks.
Yikes.
142. And then I slowly started putting weight back on. But again, I always go with the resilience factor. I've always had resilience, and I think that's what everybody needs to be successful, is just find that resilience in you. And I don't care if it's coming out of a sense of cockiness or it's coming out of a sense of like anger, or I'll do it because you said I can't. Because really my entire life, people have been like, well, you're not gonna achieve anything. You're gonna be a burnout. Look at you, look at your grades, look at your attitude. And I remember after a smoke session on the quarterdeck, it was like 45 minutes of me like dying, and they were making me do competitions with everybody to try to beat them. And I did a different workout for every single person in the platoon. Like 45 minutes later, I'm like collapsed on the floor. He's like, "Good crap, Bratt?" And I'm like, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "You want to do it again?" I looked at him and I was like, "Yeah, let's go." I died that day. A part of me died that day, but that was always me. I was kind of that arrogant dude that knew life was planned for something better for me, but I was never fitting in. So let's fast forward to I get my duty station, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, the most decorated infantry battalion in the Marine Corps. So there's a lot of heritage and a lot of pride. And when I joined it, I was hyped because they're like, "Hey, gents, we're going to Iraq."
Right.
And so
you were supposed to be there.
I was supposed to go. And so we work up, and they're like, "Hey, change of plan, gents. We're going on the 31st MEO." We're like, okay, we had a great team. We would have rocked it if we would have went that year. Because what you don't know, for the viewers out there that don't know anything about military, you get seniors and juniors, and it's kind of like college where you rotate through the teams, right? Mm-hmm. The seniors get out, because they're typically 2 years ahead of you, and then the juniors move up and you get juniors, and you continue to grow these people. And I had some amazing leadership in there, and my team was great, absolutely great. So I really thought that was it. We go to the 31st MEO, cool, whatever, we do our thing. And then we get back. They're like, "Hey, gents, 20 days from now, we're going to Afghanistan." Like, yes, this is the time. This is what's up. This is what I've joined for. Except your generation isn't going. You've got to stay back and train the juniors. So my seniors went to Afghanistan and trained with the Afghani Self-Defense Force.
Got it. So actually building up the Afghani force.
Yeah, exactly.
So training with them. There's a lot of books and movies that are written and told about that, right?
Yeah, there's a ton that goes on with that, and it's really interesting. I mean, just super funny. They can't do jumping jacks because they don't have a physical education system in school. So like jumping jacks are like the most complicated movement. But so it was a lot of my seniors went on a lot of posts and did a lot of Outlook, but none of them got a combat action ribbon, which is like the gold standard for like, you went to war, you fought in combat. Shout out to all my friends with combat action ribbons. You guys are my heroes. And no, I do not advocate for killing. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just saying those are my heroes, right? Growing up and being my seniors were the ones that had the action. They were in Ramadi.
Right.
I grew up watching. I literally watched Shepard Smith on Fox News do the initial push through Iraq. And I watched firefights at 14 years old or however old I was. No, I was younger than that. 13 years old, watched firefights in person. I wanted that. So final deployment, I'm ready to go. We're going to Afghanistan. Except we're not.
Right.
So now what do I do? I'm like, okay, Marine Corps.
And where were you? Where were you at that time, the third time that you were supposed to go?
So the whole time I was stationed out at Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
So it was basically, what people don't understand is it's not like you just deploy, right? You have a workup phase. It's like training for a marathon. Mm-hmm. So you train for a marathon and then you don't run it. And then you're told you're going to go run a marathon 12 days later, you don't run it. And then you go train for another marathon and you don't run it. So back-to-back deployments to the 31st MEO, specializing in jungle warfare. Jungle warfare, baby.
Which we haven't been involved in quite some time.
For a good reason. It's absolutely miserable. And
what did you learn from jungle warfare, like the training and everything?
Oh my gosh. So there was when we were training with the Japanese force the very first time, it was incredible. So we learned about camouflage through them. And we pull up to an area where we're going to be doing like a school circle where we're going to learn from them. And one of the seniors like whistles. 200 of the Japanese force come out of the woods. We had no clue they were there. They were literally standing 5 feet behind me. I had no clue they were there. So you want to talk about fighting an enemy you can't see?
No way.
Bro, I don't want to mess with that. Like, I don't want to mess with the jungle. I forgot to even tell you the best part. Like, we're talking about plans. So going back, my job, I was rockets and demolition within the infantry.
So that was like spot on for you. You were hyped about that regardless of where you were going, right?
Oh my goodness, bro. Like we did a range in Japan where they give us 2,000 pounds of explosive. They're like, we got 8 hours to use this. Just do whatever you want to do. So we were building like massive charges. But it's so funny because I almost didn't get the job because you have to get it based on education, like your scores. And I scored really high on the initial test to get into the military. But I had gotten a penicillin shot the day before, not because I had something growing in me, because in the military, they give you penicillin shots like every quarter. So I just gotten one and I ran the worst PFT of my life, my physical fitness test. And because of that, I didn't qualify to be an 0351, which is the rockets and demolition. So I was just regular infantry. And this is back in SOI. So as we continue through the training, a bunch of people failed out because they didn't pass their initial tests. So they came through and they're like, who wants to be a 51 and who hasn't failed a test? And I was like, I worked my ass off. While everybody was sleeping in their racks, I was up at night studying in the bathroom because I knew if I passed my tests, I get ahead.
Right.
So that was really that in training. And this is back, in my first 6 months in, that in training was my first moment of like, I'm going to have resilience and I'm going to win at all costs. Right. So now we flash forward to, I want to go to Afghanistan and do my job and do what I trained for and fight for our country, because it's beyond that. Growing up, I was the guy that during the national anthem would look at the flag and literally tear up with pride from seeing those stars and stripes. It meant everything to me and I didn't want to let my country down. And I felt like I was going to if I didn't go, but God didn't deal me those cards. So while we're on deployment, they say, hey gents, this is it. We're actually going to go. We're going to Afghanistan next year. If you sign this 6-month commitment to extending your contract, we'll take you with you. We'll take you with us. And I was like, well, I've been lied to this many times. I've been told I'm going here, I'm going here. So I was doubtful, but we had a platoon night. And that's where everybody came together and we did like a mess night. And it was in this really weird format where you had to address everything like it was the 1800s. It's incredibly motivational. Like you feel so connected to the guys to the left and right of you. And that's really what it's about. You're so connected to these guys. While I might not have been a great leader while I was in, if there was a pack that got dropped, I was the one that threw it on my back. If there was somewhere that needed to be run, I was the one that ran to it. I was a better shot than most people. I was able to hit rocket shots that most people weren't able to hit. So I had that personal pride of knowing I'm badass. Like I might not have been in the rear. I had really long hair. I was never dressed appropriately. Like I didn't care. I just wanted to be out in the field and do the things. So after the mess night, I made my decision. I'm like, I'm going to go. So I come up to my COO, my CO, who I absolutely respected. This man is known by his men as the Dwarf. And he is Captain Mindorf. He ended up being one of the top brass. He was rated the top captain in the military the year they went to Afghanistan.
Wow.
Spoiler alert. So I respected this man with all my heart. And he was one of the few people that believed in me. I had a lot of naysayers because I was kind of a dirtbag, because I just wanted to do what I wanted to do in the field. And I felt like I could lead people, but I had never really given that option. So he was one that believed in me. So I went up to him literally in the men's bathroom and I said, hey, sir, I just want you to know I'm signing my papers tomorrow. I'm going with you. He said, holy crap, bro. Yes. I got on stage. Because we were at the Palms, which is a club, like a enlisted club in Japan. And I told everybody, hey, gents, I'm going with you. And I was like screaming, let's go, hyping it up. So at this point, I'm completely invested.
Your identity is so built into this at this point, too.
100%.
Like your identity is 100%. I am going to
I'm in
Afghanistan.
And I'm telling everybody I'm going. Like, let's go to war, boys. And I even sat down with the junior enlisted Marines, the junior Marines who are under us. And I'm like, hey, guys, do you want me to go? Like, yeah. I don't know if they actually wanted me to, but I asked them if they wanted me to go and they said yes. But behind the scenes, what no one sees is leadership issues within your direct leadership. I didn't trust the individual in charge of me to drive my car, let alone to take me to war. I had literally had a falling out because of an injury I had, and it was the way he was treating the junior Marines. I was completely against it. And I tried to switch sections to become a machine gunner. I was completely against this guy. And he was the individual that would be leading us to war. So I had to have that. So that's strike one. And as we're starting to work up the papers, because you go and get all these signatures, I'm getting these signatures done and I'm getting ready to have my final stamp, which is the CO and the first sergeant. And it had just gotten worse and worse. Like the leadership wasn't there.
There's no trust there.
There was no trust, absolutely no trust. And when you're talking about going to war, it wasn't there. Not to mention the fact that in that deployment, I'd had a fast roping accident, which, have you seen Black Hawk Down?
Yeah.
You know where they're sliding down the rope to go in and the guy falls back and falls off. Mm-hmm. So I had a fast roping incident from 45 feet up. I came out too hot. The rope was wet. I was wearing too much weight and it was worn in. And I just landed on my feet and flat up, like straight up fell from 45 feet up. So my joints were bad. Like everything was adding up that it's like, why are you doing this? This is bad. And I had this feeling of impending doom through this entire thing. I'm like, you're going to die. And no one wants to say that.
You were the confident, like you were like the peak of confidence at that point. And
100%.
even you had this undertone of like, I'm going to die out there.
I 100% was going to die.
Is it because you didn't trust your surroundings? You didn't trust the people you're out there with?
I don't know. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was that. I don't know if it was a culmination of everything, man.
Gut,
because
intuition.
It was just there. And so I'm literally looking for the excuse not to go. I don't tell people this. I told you, this is the first time I've told this on any sort of media. I'm sitting there getting ready to weigh in because you have to weigh in and see that you're within measurements. And I'm like, I need something to get me out of this. Like I have to have something. And I step on the scale and this master sergeant comes in and starts screaming at me like, what the hell are you wearing? And I was wearing green sweatpants and a green shirt, which for me is green on green, but they wanted us to wear green shorts and that because it's the military. They want everything uniform. Yeah. I'm like, hey, Master Guns, I'm wearing blue boxers. Like I'm trying to weigh in. I'm trying to go to Afghanistan with y'all. I want to fight. He's like, who the F do you think you are in my corps? And blah, 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 blah. And I was like, there it is. I'm done. I'm not going to go to war with an organization that when I'm signing extra months of my life and willing to put my life on the line, you're going to yell at me for wearing blue boxers underneath some sweatpants when I'm in the best shape of my life. And that was it. I ripped my papers, threw them in the trash. I walked into my room, and that was that.
That was it.
That was it. I'm not going.
Because it was the final straw that like there was just a lack of respect, a lack of trust there on their part even.
There was nothing. There was... From the people that I respected.
It had nothing to do with blue boxers. It had everything to do with the way you were treated.
100%.
Right?
I mean, in life, we're looking for that. We're looking for that respect factor. If I'm willing to put my life on the line,
right,
I expect to have some sort of respect. But the way it works in the military is you're all equally worthless. Like that's the classic saying. You are all equally worthless. Because to the military, the number is just a number.
Right.
The guy didn't know me. He didn't know what I could do. He didn't know that literally in ranges before that, when we had, mortarmen falling out, me and my boy Anderson were throwing extra packs on our back and putting full weapon system while we were already carrying our weapon system and hiking it 20 miles in a day. Like he didn't know that, but we did. And I'm sorry, but when I'm looking for the out, that was the out. So flash forward to, we come back from deployment and they start doing their build up for the deployment. And I'm starting to get out and working my way out. I'm kind of just chilling, getting to the gym every day. And I see them going to the field and coming back and going to the field and coming back. And it hits me. They're training to go to war right now. And I'm looking in their eyes and I'm laughing and joking with them, but they might not come back. And it was that moment that it hit me like, shit, there's nothing I can do. I can't protect anybody. I'm not going to be there for them. They're on their own. So flash forward 6 months later, I get out. They get back from the deployment. I'd worried about them the entire time. And I'm doing okay. I start nursing school and I'm starting to get that stress in. And it started to hit me a little bit at a time. And I started hanging out with my friend Johnny Walker a little bit more, trying to numb the pain, just like every classical person thinks they should. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. And then they end up on this show called Battleground Afghanistan on Nat Geo. So now not only did I not get to go with them,
they're getting highlighted.
I'm watching them on TV at war, getting shot at, not sleeping, dirty, sleeping in holes for weeks.
You are feeling bad because you're not there for several reasons, on top of the fact that like you wanted to be there at first and now you're worried about them, right?
100%. And now I'm watching them and I know they're home, but it doesn't matter because now it's real. Now it's in my face. Now I'm seeing what they went through, what they had, what they saw.
You're watching this when you already knew they were home.
100%.
Got it.
Didn't change it.
Yeah.
Because I know we had boys that lost legs. I know we had boys that got killed.
Right.
So I'm waiting to see that on TV. I'm waiting to see Carlson, this kid that was just a beast, lose his legs. Like, I'm waiting for that episode.
Yeah.
And I made it a couple episodes in, and the drinking starts getting worse. The stress with school, the stress with life starts to get really bad. And I actually go down into my basement. And I'm a gun owner, and I have a Springfield XDM 40 caliber. And I open the gun case, and I look at it, and I'm like, all right, let's go. This is the moment. And I go to pull it out, and I didn't even think I was worth shooting myself in the mouth. That's how little respect I had for myself at this time. I couldn't pick the gun out of the case and kill myself. I couldn't do it. I didn't think I deserved it. I said to myself, I said, what did you do to deserve this out when you're too much of a pussy to go fight with your family?
Right.
So I close the case, pound some scotch, go to sleep. Fast forward a couple weeks later, it's getting bad. That moment culminated into compounding anxiety and depression and fear, to the point where I was.
And what were you feeling from that point, for the next 2 weeks? Like, you'd wake up and you would just,
I couldn't look people in the face,
yeah.
man. I couldn't look people in the face. I mean, I didn't tell my family what was going on. I just met this.
Kind of heads down to yourself.
Dude.
Yeah.
And I'm the most outgoing person you'll ever meet.
Which is that'd be very off kilter for you.
Yeah, but I didn't really have any friends at the time close, because I just moved back, and I was kind of out of my own circle because they didn't understand what I was going through, and I didn't want to be around them because all they wanted to do was party and have fun. And so it culminated to a night where I'm having a legit anxiety attack. My heart rate's like 130, 140. I'm pacing back and forth in my room, throwing papers, drinking scotch. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And I just take off on a sprint down 27th Street. And I'm running as hard and as fast as I possibly can. And it's a calm night. And I remember it had just rained. And every step I hear that splash of the water. I'm trying to outrun the noise, and I'm trying to outrun the pain. And I stop on the bridge overlooking Highway 2 on 27th Street. And I had actually just met my now wife at the time. And I sit down, and I have my head between my legs, and I'm crying, and I call her and I say, Claire, I can't tell you why, but it's not okay right now. I don't know what to do. I can't do it. And she says, just pray. And I'm an atheist,
at this time, like your whole life building up.
My whole life, I was an atheist. I didn't believe.
You got to be kidding me.
Exactly. I said, that is not going to do a damn thing. Fine. And I turn off my phone, and I throw my phone down the bridge. I sit back, and I look up at the sky, and I say, God, if you're out there, I need you now. And immediately when I said that, this rush, the warmest, most welcoming rush came over my body, and the wind picked up, and it literally blew my pain away. And it gave me this moment of clarity, this incredible moment that I had not experienced in so long. And I went, oh shit.
Oh, he's there.
I was like, oh, okay, you're listening.
Got it.
Hey, bud, nice to meet you. I'm Alex. So I was like, all right.
So what do you think? What's going through your head?
What's supposed to go through your head at that time? I was like, God's real. It was this moment of enlightenment that I think everybody looks for in their life, and everybody's waiting for that moment where God identifies themselves to them.
Do you feel like you were physically pushed back off of that ledge?
100%.
You're physically
it was
moved.
Gone. It was gone. I feel like God came in, entered my soul, and took all the pain away with this warm breeze, warm rush. It was the most incredible moment of my life, Landon. Second to getting married and having my child.
Right.
And just think about the aspects leading up to that and the aspects of me finding God. If I wouldn't have met my wife, Claire, if I wouldn't have taken a chance because my parents asked me to do a play and this beautiful girl is starring opposite of me and our first kiss is in front of 200 people.
Oh shit. It was serious.
No, it's serious. Like we were in the play together.
Role.
If I wouldn't have met her that summer, this moment would have never happened and I probably would have been dead. So I have this moment of clarity, right? And I'm like, all right, well, what am I going to do with it? Because if we've talked, I'm not the guy that is ever going to waste a moment, because at this point I can do anything I set my mind to. God's touched me. I've got the confidence of being a Marine. I'm like, cool. Well, if I'm feeling this way, other people have to be feeling this way.
Yeah.
So God continued to open doors for me. So I met a guy, Lyman Garrison at the VA. I was there for an appointment. He said, hey, why don't you come to a Marine Corps League function? I was like, that's a bunch of old guys sitting in a room, like drinking scotch. Like, I don't want to go to that. That sounds awful. He's like, no, here's this guy, David Ocean. He's our commandant. I want you to give him a call. And so I called David Ocean, who I consider my mentor. And,
did he know your story?
He didn't know my story. No one knew my story.
Gotcha.
This is like legitimately, I didn't tell my story until 4 years later. And I don't think they've ever actually heard the story. This is my first time telling it where anybody that I know will see it.
Right.
No one's ever heard this story.
Powerful, man. It's a good thing that you're sharing it.
And that was the thing as we get with this nonprofit, they're like, hey, what do you want to do? And there was this organization called, first they put me in a leadership billet. They wanted me to be treasurer of a new organization coming up. So they made me the treasurer. And then through that, within a year, they promoted me to the second highest ranked officer in the state of Nebraska to help run the state. And through that, they asked, well, what do you want to do? And there was this organization called Irreverent Warriors founded by Donnie O'Malley that was just in its grassroots movement. And what they did was they used silkies, which are these ridiculously short PT shorts that we wore while we were in. And they hiked all over the city and they were ridiculous. And they used irreverent, dark humor to heal people. And I said, well, okay. Well, I can't reach any of the younger guys and I don't know how. I'm going to bring that here. How do I do that?
I love that.
So I started calling all over and I called Donnie and I was like, hey, how do I do this? And they're like, hey, let me get you with this person. So we end up bringing the event to Nebraska. And so now I'm second highest in the state of Nebraska and I'm running this event. I've never run an event. No one's ever run a nonprofit. There's no schooling how to do it. So I'm going out getting funders. And we throw our first event and 60 people show up. And I get a call the next day from a counselor at the VA that says, hey, there's a Marine with 3 kids alive today because of your event. And I went,
bingo.
This is it.
That's it.
This is this moment. Now, keep in mind, I'm in nursing school through this entire time. So not only am I doing nursing school, studying all weekend, every weekend, trying to maintain a relationship. Now I've decided, hey, I'm going to add in this element of this nonprofit leadership. So we continued to throw events. And over the years, married Claire, ended up getting promoted into the public relations director for the organization. So we had an image problem. It was too irreverent and it was too out there. And we really want to go after government contracts. I'm no longer with the organization now after my new role. But at the time, we were really trying to get those government contracts. And to do that, you have to have a manner of professionalism. So
you do. Yeah.
I was pretty much all along the way just given rein to be like, hey, try to create content. Hey, do this. Hey, reach out to this. So I would just contact podcasts. I'd contact anyone like, hey, I want to talk about our story. I want to talk about our story. I want to talk about our story. But through that, we started doing interviews and they're doing a documentary right now. And I started to find out it's not just me that's suffering with this because so many people think it's just combat veterans that are killing themselves. A large percentage of them aren't combat veterans. And I started finding more and more guys like me that are saying, hey, I feel bad that I didn't go. I can't handle it. And I'm like, okay, share your story. Here's my story. So it started as just privately sharing my story with people. It started blossoming, and it sparked the fire.
Right. Yeah, that's the moment, right?
Yeah.
That's the moment when you started sharing things, people started to respond. And so you started finding more and more people. I remember, so tell me more about what happened after you're getting more and more people to hear that story and you're getting response from that.
So it still wasn't even that. It was, I hadn't sold my story. I just opened myself up. And this is the audacity of us as human beings, right? Like, you might not know what you're doing or why you're doing it, but you have the mindset that you're going to go out there and accomplish it. So I just made myself available for people. And the number of people that were coming up to me and like, hey, 2 weeks ago, I want to kill myself. It became so common to hear that it was like, okay, cool. Tell me what's going on. And that's actually what sparked this podcast. We had somebody at the event that you spoke at came up to me and was like, hey, 2 weeks ago was almost the end.
I remember because I didn't say anything profound by any means. I basically just talked about like I had a really dark January, basically.
Yeah.
But never to that point to where I was questioning that. It was more just like, this is the suck. Like we're deep into like the worst part of what it means to be a business owner, like the dark shit that nobody talks about.
Yep.
And
because why would they? Because it's not flashy. It doesn't
it's not
sell.
flashy.
It's not good on Instagram.
Well, it's not flashy. Your employees would never want to know. And your customers would never want to know that information either. So you're in this weird place where you're not, I mean, you don't want to share that information with people. And like that is, I think, the large stem of the reason we're also having this podcast is to talk about just mental health with business owners too.
100%.
And so, yeah, long short of that is, yeah, we're at the speaking event and somebody comes up to you and they say,
hey, 2 weeks ago was almost the end of it. And I was like, okay, tell me. Now, what's interesting, and like I said, is it didn't get to the point where I was like, oh, I'm sorry. It was never that.
You skipped empathy. You skipped sympathy and went straight to empathy, and you started 100%. To understand what their situation was.
No one needs your sympathy. No one wants your sympathy.
They don't want it.
They just want to know what the answer is. That's all of us. We don't want the sympathy.
They just want to know how to not feel shitty.
How do we do it? Let me tell you about it. And they just want to share their story. And what I personally started doing, and being a nurse, you're taught a certain way of doing things. But I found the way that worked best for me was putting it on the veteran, putting it on the individual. Like, you owe it to your family, to everyone, to stay alive. Right. Because all you're doing by killing yourself is taking the easy way out, and you're deferring that pain onto them. So I started saying it exactly like that. Like, your mission isn't done as a veteran. Your mission isn't done as a business owner. Like, if you kill yourself, you just failed the mission, 100%. Because all you're doing is passing pain on and causing those that you love to suffer with your pain. The biggest moment for me that I made my slip up was there was a kid named Dre out of Beatrice. And I had been pretty deep into Irreverent Warriors at the time, and I was pretty deep into nursing school, and I had finished my psych rotation. And he was showing signs and symptoms like erratic behavior, selling things off, doing donuts past
preparing
the police
for the
station.
end.
100%.
Yeah.
And I didn't catch it. And that was the moment that really struck me, that I had to sit back and really start analyzing and challenging people, because I didn't catch that this kid was going to kill himself. And his last message was I'm in Lincoln, who's down to get messed up, or something like that. Right. And I woke up the next morning in the gym, because I'm a 4:45 gymmer. I was looking at it. I'm like, oh man, he must have been out. And then I see R.I.P. Dre, R.I.P. Dre, R.I.P. Dre. And I'm like, oh my God, those were the signs. I'm like, those were all signs. And so it was from then that I really started putting the mission on people. Stay alive, because it's what you owe it to your family.
Yeah, you owe it to your family, to your friends, and to those other people that need, they're going to need a piece of you in the future. They're going to need a piece of like what you have to bring to the table. But telling somebody that here's what I think, like what happens is, like, I believe that your identity gets so caught up in, or you put so much of your eggs of your identity into one basket, and you say like, this is who I am. This is exactly what I'm doing. And then when that shit goes wrong and everything breaks, that is still a massive part of your identity, but it's now a gaping hole in your identity. So you feel like you don't have one. Yeah. And all these little tiny things, these little tiny squares on the outside of that giant square that used to be your big identity. Now those tiny squares are still small, but you still have this huge gaping hole in the middle of it, and you have to fill that. So what do people fill it with?
Booze,
drugs, alcohol, sex, vices, whatever. Anything to numb themselves from the idea that those tiny squares are still tiny squares. When in reality, what I think people need to do if they want to like go through and kind of readjust their identity a little bit is put more time into those little squares, like relationship with your family, relationship with your spouse, relationship with your kids. I mean, you back to the gym, find a hobby. Like there's a lot of different things that you can become as a person that don't have to do with that one giant thing that's now the gaping hole in your identity.
Well, and to mention on the family part, because, we've talked, family is a huge aspect of who I am. I don't go out at night. I don't go out on the weekends. When I play golf with my family. Like, I have invested myself so much into my family because that's what matters to me. I think about those veterans or about those business owners that don't have family, that don't have a wife, that don't have somebody to check on them, that wouldn't have been there that night that I picked up the phone and said, hey, Claire, I don't know what to do. Not everybody has that there. Right. So that's where they have to rely on their friend group. And that's what I told this kid. I said, hey, who do you have? He's like, well, I got so-and-so. I'm like, why aren't you reaching out to him? Because guess what? That person would much rather spend 15 minutes on the phone than 15 minutes at your funeral. 100%. So why do people get so scared to reach out? That vulnerability, because no one talks about the vulnerability. Because what do we talk about? It's all about the flash. I throw on Instagram like, oh, this is my Lexus. Oh, this is my, this is my
this
Gucci
is our huge
belt.
Company.
This is that. But no one's talking about, hey, it was a bad day. Because what happens when you talk about, hey, it's a bad day? Oh, that person's looking for attention. We put those people down. Yeah. So it's coming as a society and changing things and saying, no, we want you to talk. Share your bad day on Instagram. Yeah. Show when you're having your bad time. Because if everybody doesn't start doing that, and I'm not saying everybody has to do that, but if they don't start doing that, we're all just going to continue to fake it. And people are going to continue to kill themselves on a daily basis.
Yeah, because it's kind of building up the facade of this is a perfect existence. I think the biggest thing is that you want that to really be the case when you're sharing it. Like that there are positive things that are going on, and you want to continually share the fact that like I do have a lot of great things going for me. I think that part's really important though. 100%. So like when people are sharing only positive things, don't stop sharing that stuff too. Start maybe just, it's tough, right? It's such a scenario based thing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you post on social. It's way more about, for me anyway, when it's like a bad day, it's way more about just calling someone and just verbally processing what happened that day. You know
why? Because when we get on social, we're looking for the likes. Yeah. That post isn't going to get
validation that you have a problem.
Because we validate everything through social media and we value through our public image. Well, that's not going to work. No one cares about your bad day except for those in your inner circle. Even if you don't have somebody, you can call a random person on your friend list like, hey, you don't really know me, but this is what's going on.
That's real. Yeah. That's real, by the way. I've done that before. Like and like people that are on the kind of the fringe, but you just have to talk to somebody. I've definitely done that before. And I think that's, if you have to do that, you do it.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is out of those dark days come the best days of your life. So if you look at me, I've never fit in a box. I mean, in nursing school, we have something called an unmet, which means like you failed that aspect. I think I failed every professionalism aspect of every single clinical we did. Like it was like unmet. I remember this teacher like sat me down. She's like, oh, I'm going to have to give you an unmet. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I get it because I never fit within a box.
What's fun, what's interesting to me is that you're that confident in it still. That you're like, I know, it's fine.
Yeah, I know what I am. Because look, it was never, again, we talk about God's plan. Like God has always been there. Sorry to shift gears, everybody, but God has always been there for me since that moment. Like I totaled my motorcycle in 2010. I was doing 90 mile an hour knee drags through canyons. I've been riding for 1 month. So you talk about that confidence. Sometimes it gets me in bad situations in my early 20s. And when I totaled my motorcycle, I just slowed up to make my turnaround. I was down at like 45 miles per hour. And I come over a cliff and I look. And if anybody knows about riding, if you lose track of where your sight is, that's the direction you're going to go. So I cross over a center line and I'm like, crap. So I go to throw my bike back. The rivets in the center of the road throw my handles to the side and throw me over the top. And I get thrown and I'm like, oh, I'm going to die. And I hit the ground. I'm like, oh, I didn't die. I guess I die this next time. Like God's been with me this entire time. There's so many elements that I didn't see. Like if traffic had just slowed up coming from the onbound lane, if it wouldn't have slowed up, I would have flown right through a windshield. If I wouldn't have gotten thrown off my bike, I would have been pinned under the bike. So I've looked for God's signs along the way. And look, I'm not saying, look, if you're not a Christian, that's okay. Look for signs that are out there. Look for some belief because there are signs pointing you in the right direction. I was never going to go strictly into nursing. Like I'm the director of a men's health company right now that specializes in men and women's testosterone therapy. It is my job to market the business, manage the business. We have our national marketing team, but I'm the direct representation. If I would have fit into the box through nursing school and through high school and in the Marine Corps, like I wouldn't have the confidence to go out there and be like, hey, Landon, I'm Alex Bratt. Let's do this podcast and save some lives.
Right.
So look for the signs because I truly believe God's out there molding your life.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a huge part. And when those big blocks of your identity do shift, it's for a good reason. Those shifts are just the beginning of something great that's coming down the pipeline. 100%. Or it's a reminder is that you let that one box of your identity get too big. You need to resize that shit. And you need to make sure that it's a little bit more even across the board of the matrix that it is your identity. Is because, and like, think of it as like a grid, guys, as you're listening to this, if you've got one giant box that's, say it's 20 by 20 and the rest are all just like 1 by 1 little boxes, right? That piece of your identity is something that like you need to even that out a little bit more, in my opinion, because we'll get so caught up into like, we are this is who I am. And then when that thing goes wrong, your differential split and you'll just like, lose your mind.
And we talked the other day, like when you called me the other day, I talked about down to even music that we listen to and what we put into our system and like how our mindset.
Do you think, so
let's go.
I listen to A Day to Remember all day today. So.
Yes. So you're just ready to like flip it. Like, what are we doing in the studio? See, I was listening to Logic on the way in. So you don't even see me in this chair. Like I'm just like bobbing in here, like flowing at Logic speed. But like, I mean, down to what we put in our mind is so important because that consumes us and becomes a part of it. I'm going to say something that I've never said out loud, but I think it needs to be said. I haven't watched porn in 8 years. If you go on Instagram right now and you pull up your search feed, if you're a guy, I guarantee there's going to be a half naked model on your screen. Dude, 100% all day. It's going to be
it doesn't matter what you look at. It's still going to be there. Sex
is there 24/7. And I'm telling you, the best thing I did was cleared my mind from that. Mm-hmm. I've cut down on my drinking. It's been about clearing my life. And we talk about relationships, right? We're trying to build relationships. If you're in a relationship out there and you're watching porn, first of all, sorry, you're part of our generation. We grew up with the internet. So you remember downloading those pictures and it was like, oh, boob, oh, mom, you got on the internet and froze it. We've had a misperception of how we should treat women. We're taking this podcast everywhere. Get ready, guys. This is going wherever it's going to go. I don't even know. But we have this misperception of what's healthy in a relationship. And for our generation, we're seeing things like that ruin relationships. Mm-hmm. The best thing I did was when I first met Claire, I made that commitment. I value her. I value our relationship. I value our sexual experience so much more because it's not what the media is portrayed. And we go back to Instagram. So you're looking at these half naked models that are in the best shape of your life, right?
Right.
How are you going to go find that girl? I'll tell you what, I'm a good looking dude. Oh, he didn't mute his phone.
Somebody's like, leave it in.
Yeah.
Just leave it in the episode.
I'm in, man. But like you get into that relationship and you're like, yeah, I mean, this girl's great, but it's not this girl. It's the same way with cars. Right. Like I follow this car all the
comparison
time.
Syndrome, right?
Oh,
you're comparing. Constant comparison is the key to like being unhappy 24/7.
100%.
Like,
but no one's talking about that.
The comparison paradox is real.
And it's always
spending your day saying I'm with this person, but this person is better looking, this person is more driven, whatever. Like you got to get right with whatever that is that you want and stop comparing that person to whatever it is that you think you're capable of achieving or getting over here. Because, and if you're doing that when you're single, like that's just choice, right? Yeah. That's making a decision of which direction you want to go. Mm-hmm. But God, you got to be pretty confident in it when you do.
Mm-hmm. I don't know where to go with that. That was said perfectly. Like, what am I supposed to say to that? It's so accurate. Because I mean, even like, think about when you're in the gym. I'm a comparison guy because I'm competitive. So are you. I saw your performance scores. Like, we're the same person.
Right.
We're there to be competitive. We're there to win. Mm-hmm. But let's be honest. We're out here trying to run a business. You're working, how many hours a week you work?
50 to 70.
Yeah, I'm 50 plus hours a week. I handle calls on the weekend. I get to the gym 3-4 days a week. You know why? Because I've decided to sacrifice the additional time that I would say get up early and go to the gym so I could stay up a little later with my wife and watch a little bit of TV or communicate. So we're constantly comparing ourselves when it's like comparing apples and like pistachio ice cream. Like it's just not going to happen. If somebody has the time or they're at that stage in their life to work out 7 days a week, like yes, they're going to be great and we can admire that, but you're just not going to be that person. You know why? Because we're putting our boxes, our grids. I love that.
Yeah.
We're filling other grids right now. So yeah, you can put a portion of your grid to that, but quit comparing. Same way with women, man. Oh my goodness. I want to talk to the women that watch this.
Yeah, there's women. Yeah.
We talk about the gym, right? Like you see what women wear to the gym and over-sexualize themselves in the gym, which causes comparison. Like if you see a girl over-sexualizing themselves in the gym or wearing a crop top and like literally coming up and like pulling their shorts up, like just brush that off. First of all, congrats to that girl for having that confidence to do it. Mm-hmm. And I also don't want to be the person that ever puts somebody down like, oh, a skank, like she dressed like that. Like, dang, I wish I had that confidence to go in there and like tarts off and just start pumping iron and like pointing to people, which I do, but that's because I have that kind of confidence. But like, I just want everybody to stop comparing themselves because that's what's crushing. And we talked about that the other day when I sat into your office. I was like, it goes back to that comparison culture. It's just such a massive portion of our society.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it doesn't lead to happiness. That's the big piece of it, is it doesn't. You can't point to a time where you've compared your life to someone else's where, like, because comparing yourself, like when you look down on somebody's life, like, well, at least I'm not that. Like, does that really make you happy?
No.
Like, if anything, like if you're an empathetic person, it'll probably make you feel a little bit bad for that person.
Have you seen the video where It's like there's a guy in like a Grand Am, like a Pontiac Grand Am. And he looks to the right and he sees a guy in a Porsche, and they go to the guy in a Porsche. He looks to the right and they see the guy in a limo, and they look to the guy to the right and he's looking up at a helicopter, and he's looking up at a private jet. And all the way back at the beginning is a guy in a wheelchair, and he's like, I just wish I could walk. Like, you're comparing yourself in the wrong way. Compare yourself to the left. Because you could be there. Where did you come from? And that's where we're all at in business, especially in this
that's
COVID
super
time
powerful.
frame.
That gets into the next and final topic of this, which I think is gratitude. Waking up in the morning, and one of the people on our team, actually, Sam, was talking about, like, because we ended our meeting on Monday with one gratitude as we left, and she said, I was really like glad that I could just have all my fingers and toes, and like I could move and I could sit up out of bed without having someone help me. It's like that. Right there. It is like that sense of gratitude. If you can find gratitude, and this is speaking on mental health too, it is impossible to be angry and grateful at the same time. That's a Tony Robbins quote. And I genuinely believe that to be true, because if you actually take the 5 or 10 minutes to say, I'm going to be grateful for these things. I remember I've used this example in the podcast, so you guys might be rolling your eyes and listening to this, but
I'm not. I'm really looking forward to this. So sit quietly.
Right. Excuse me. So the example that I use is, I was sitting in a pretty cheap apartment, really didn't have any furniture or anything. I just quit my job and I was starting the company. And I was a few months into the apartment, and there was like cockroaches everywhere. I started realizing, it was like, okay, I'm in a cockroach infested apartment.
You were at 13th and A too?
Close. Yeah, close. Yeah, shout out Capitol Hill Apartments. Thanks for that. So those apartments and everything, they had taught me that, basically that living in that apartment had taught me that, I was meditating one morning, and I saw cockroaches like crawling up the wall when I opened my eyes back up for meditating. And so like you're at this like peak Zen moment in your morning. It's 4:30 a.m. That sort of calm and clarity, right?
Yeah.
And then 4:30, 4:45 a.m. I open my eyes, and there's cockroaches crawling all over my wall towards the light in the corner. And then I go and I'm like, okay, whatever. Those are there all the time. Just brush it off.
Bro, it's so funny when we come from the ghetto, like living at 13th and A, they crawl across your feet. You're like, it's Tony.
It's Tony, right?
He eats the other bugs. It's cool.
And so I walk up and grab a piece of bread to get some carbs in me before I went and worked out. And I saw 3 big ones crawl over the top of on the inside of my bread bag. And I'm just like, that's it. And so, but I told myself from that point forward, even after I saw that, because I knew I had to get out of there, but I said, if I can be grateful in this situation, something that obviously sucks, it's not a fun situation. I hate bugs to begin with. And so like I can't sleep around that environment and everything. So like I told myself, if I can be grateful for having, warm air in the apartment, if I can be grateful for having running water and the ability to clean things with chemicals and like, clean this place up and everything, if I can find gratitude in that, I'll get to the next thing, and I'm going to really appreciate the next one more. And like, I never forgot that, of the value of having now a clean place that doesn't have bugs in it. But like, you have to be able to be grateful in the shittiest of situations before you can be grateful driving around in a Porsche.
Well, and we talked about this right before the podcast started, and it's going to relate to kind of what's going on in COVID right now. Because let's be real, COVID's really tough for people right now. Businesses are failing. Owners. No one's opening. Just looking for that moment of gratefulness. And I come from a lower middle class family. We would have bean soup when we could, and my parents grinded. I mean, my dad ran a business. What I didn't see growing up was when I, went to bed, he went to work and worked till 11 o'clock and came home and went to bed. I think it's easier coming from a down situation and going up than going from an up situation and going down. So I really think people need to start valuing the place that they're in, because they can literally only go uphill. So since I was a kid, I've constantly gone uphill, and I was grateful for everything. I remember, shout out to mom and dad. I remember in 4th grade, we were looking for a pair of shoes at Target. I couldn't find anything that fit me. And there was this sick silver pair of Nikes, and there were these Nike basketball shoes, and I kept looking at them, and they were like $80. And like, my family was doing good to afford a computer at the time. Like, they were grinding, but it's, living in Beatrice, there's no economy there. And my dad saw how bad I wanted them. And he didn't care. He made it happen. Like, be that person that goes above and tries to find a way. Like I can only like, that's the most, I remember that was my first moment of gratefulness. Like I know we're poor. I know like not poor, but like we're not right. Like my dad is going above and beyond. I remember just like hugging my dad and being like thankful. So like remember those moments of being thankful for what you have, because I could be dead right now. You could be dead right now. You could literally be wanting to kill yourself right now. I'm guaranteeing you, if you sit back and meditate right after this podcast and think about what's going good in your life, there are things out there.
You have to look for them though. Sometimes you have to look and you have to actively think about them because you start taking them for granted. And if you're gone tomorrow, you won't be able to be that father that bought the kids the Nikes, or even if you are dirt poor, you know, like you won't be able to be that person for, you know, like your dad was to you and like my parents were to me.
Well, and you know, we talk about that, having a bad mindset and being, you know, what'd you say, angry and grateful at the,
you can't be angry and grateful at the same time.
Can't be angry and grateful at the same time. And you know, I'm going through a phase in my life right now. Well, let's be honest. We'll talk about personal development. I've been a leader many, many times in my life, but never in a business aspect, especially in nursing. I have my first employee now. You know, I'm responsible for growing my clients. I'm responsible for every one of those clients. And I wouldn't say that I got cocky there for a little while, but that confidence that I have, we have, you know, sometimes you got to put it in check. And it was not being grateful for what I had. And it's not because I want to grow the business or make more money. I want to help more guys. That's what I'm in the business that I'm in for, because I've realized that, like, I know what hormone therapy can do for people, and I know what my experiences have done. So I want to help more guys. So I'd come home and I'd be like, yeah, cocky. And I'd be listening to like rap music. And my wife was like, hey, you're changing. And like, you're not grateful for anything you have now. You want more. And just having that person in your life, like having that buddy, or the battle buddy, as the guys in the Army say, having that person to keep you in check is so good. Yeah. And I think if we get anything from this podcast today, it's that you need to get that person in your support system. You need to go out and find somebody that you know you can count on. And like,
value
even if you create a contract, like we call it in healthcare a suicide contract. We learned about it. Like, I will not kill myself within the next 30 days. Like, I would love to see people in our community during this tough COVID time, like going out with a buddy and like, we will talk once a month on this date. Signed contract, signed here. Because when you put it in writing, you're more willing to do it.
Yeah, and even just the verbal social contract of like, I'm going to be checking in on you. You know, even something as simple as that. Or maybe, you know, if it is a struggle in business right now, maybe telling yourself, writing that contract to yourself and saying, we're not shutting our doors. We're going to keep going.
100%.
You know, we're going to keep innovating to figure this out, whether I have to go work at Target or work at Uber. In the meantime, we're going to figure this out to get through it. So I think that's really good ending point, is focusing on that gratitude piece. So Alex, thanks for coming on today, man.
No, I
really appreciate this. This is awesome.
No, it was so great to finally have somebody want to do a mental health episode. So thank you for taking your brand and being willing to let me and you communicate to our viewers out there. And again, to the viewers, thank you for taking the time to watch this and just reach out. Neither of us want you to die. Neither of us want you to kill yourself. Neither of us want you crying yourself to sleep tonight, because there's so much more than that. So thank you for taking this time, taking this hour or so with us. And thanks for putting your name forward on this. I think we made a difference today.
Yeah. Alex, go ahead and let our listeners know, like, how can they get a hold of you now that they've heard you talk for a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if you get on my Instagram, it's a lot more fun. It's not always this serious. So you can find me on Instagram at Alex_Ander. You're going to see pictures of my wonderful kid, my family, and me being awful at golf and hockey. So that's what's going on there. Check me out on Facebook at Alex Bratt. And you can stop into the clinic, Ageless Men's Health. We're at 34th and Old Cheney. Stop in. Love to hear your problems there too. I'm always here for you guys. Thank you for taking the time with us today. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate this. And guys, if you wanna reach out to me personally with any of these questions, whether it's relationships, whether it's business, life in general, there's a good chance I've been through some of it myself, and I could provide you at least, someone to talk to, and maybe even some good advice on what to do to get out of your situation or get yourself into a better one. My Instagram is at Life of Landon. And you can also send a DM to at Spark to Fire Podcast. I'm the one that's going to be checking that information. So go ahead and shoot a DM to either of those. Be happy to communicate with you guys on that. So that's going to do it for another episode of Spark to Fire, and keep striking.